Ever since I first saw it, We Happy Few immediately grabbed my attention with its alt history and government controlling its citizens via drugs, and those who rebel don't take the drugs and thus are enemies of the state. It has all the makings with a unique look to it that immediately screams something I would absolutely love, and I couldn't wait to get my hands on it. And the game has finally hit Steam, but unfortunately, it's early access, with one of the most important parts of this game missing as of now. But is the game still worth checking out for the $30? Or is it best to wait for a full release? We Happy Few takes place in an alt history of the early 1960s in Wellington Wells, a fictional town from England. In the game, you control a character named Arthur, who has decided to finally stop taking his joy after he ends up attending a small party within the office he works at. In fact, his job is even to censor newspaper articles from the past to deem whether or not people should actually be able to see them. The whole point of the world is everyone has to be happy all the time, and if you're not, you're a downer, and thus everyone hates you, or even the police are going to try to kill you. Arthur barely escapes and lands in the sewers, eventually making it to a nice little safe house which works as your hub, which you will end up going back to not only to rest your character, but if you end up dying, you will end up respawning there. The game does feature permadeath though, so if you want to make things a lot tougher, you can definitely do so, but I prefer to have that off, and the only real penalty then at that point for dying is that you will lose a couple of random items from your inventory. Once you're in the world of Wellington Wells, it's a pretty open world. You're given one basic quest for you to complete, and as soon as you start to go towards that quest marker, you're going to find that you're going to be unable to do that, and you're going to have to complete other objectives in order to eventually complete that main objective. The game is semi-randomly generated, where basically it's the same world that you're going to be exploring like everyone else, but the way that the quests are set up and where they're located will be different for each person. While you will have to complete random quests, and you'll get new ones along the way, including ones that may not be about your main objective. You may come to a certain location inside of a small open area, and then a new quest ends up opening up, where you either collect certain items or take out a certain person. While the game has a great introductory story to get you into everything, unfortunately, once you're in the world though, there is no story as of yet. There are some journal entries, and there are some minor things here and there to give you a little bit more about the world, but unfortunately, until the game is fully released, the story will not be included. So because of this, even though you have a decent amount of quests for you to complete, there's not going to be any cutscenes or any really driving reason for why exactly you're doing everything along the way. So right now, what you're mainly going to be doing is getting used to the game's mechanics and how everything works. There's a large amount of things for you to find and craft in the world, and you have to manage things like thirst, hunger, whether or not your character's bleeding after a recent combat excursion, and even potentially can get food poisoning and even the plague along the way. The quests that are in the game remind me, unfortunately, a bit of a game like Dead Island, with a lot of fetch and crafting quests that you're going to have to do. Basically, for example, you will have to get honey in order to cross a certain bridge, but the tree that has the honey is of course swarmed with bees. In order to get close, you're going to need a padded suit, so you have to go around and find all the items needed in order to craft yourself the padded suit so you can get close enough in order to thus grab the honey and be able to get across the bridge. That's pretty much the main style of quest, at least so far in the game. There is some combat as well for you to not only take out some random citizens, and a couple of quests that have you taking out certain people, and you can either use your fist or craft various weapons for you to thus use in order to beat down your opponents. While I don't really object to managing stuff like thirst and hunger, unfortunately, it felt like it was happening way too much. It seemed like as soon as I quenched my character's thirst, a minute or two later before I even got to my next objective marker, that it ended up being thirsty again, and I would have to stop to either take a drink or run back and refill my canteens. I was impressed that there was so many things for you to craft already so far in the game, and I'm not sure if they're going to be adding even more into the mix as the game gets farther into its development. There's a lot of stuff that you'll be needing to craft, like lockpicks and bandages, but you also have to craft your clothes, and there's a good amount of stuff here. There's a lot of spots for you to search and check, and you're always going to be making sure you search every rock pile and every set of drawers so that you can make sure you have as many of the supplies as possible. While you can bring up your map in order to see where your next quest marker is, unfortunately in the game itself, at the top of the screen, it will mark where your home is, where water is, and a few other things, but it doesn't really give you a good way of knowing where exactly your next objective is without pulling up the map and looking into it. And there's no way currently to set any custom waypoint markers for you to use in order to help guide you as well. As the game is right now, it takes about 10 to 15 minutes to get through the introduction, depending upon how much you look around and explore your office setting, but once you're into the world, there's definitely a few hours worth of quests that so far can be completed, and a few of which I haven't been able to quite figure out exactly what I need to do yet or find where I need to go in order to get through it, so there's still some more for me to explore in what's there currently. Graphically, I think the game looks pretty nice. The office introductory scene is especially good looking, and then once you're in the world, there's a lot of decrepit and destroyed buildings because of the setting of the whole thing, but even once you get to the happier side of town, things definitely pick up as far as being able to be a bit brighter and look a little bit nicer, and there's some nice detailing with the plant life throughout all of the game so far. Once I did finally get the game up and running, which took a few hours, unfortunately there was some issues with Windows 7 that it didn't like and the game wouldn't open at all, but eventually it finally did. The only real issue I ran into is I got stuck at a couple of spots in the game trying to explore buildings. My character was unable to move, and even closing the game and reopening it, it saves you at that exact spot where you save, so unfortunately I was still stuck. But you can go into the console and add kind of a no clipping mode so you can unstick yourself if that unfortunately ends up happening, but it definitely was a bit of annoyance. So far, for what's there with We Happy Few, it's minimal. There are a decent amount of quests for you to complete, but with no narrative to really drive things along, it's hard to recommend at all of really diving into the game fully right now unless you really want to be one of those people that kind of sees it as it slowly gets developed. The game is set to be early access for at least 6 to 7 months according to the developer, and once that's complete we'll finally actually have the story mode, in which point then I definitely want to play more of We Happy Few so I can explore the story, because I feel like that is going to be one of the biggest and best aspects of this particular game. So, as it is right now, I'm going to be giving We Happy Few an incomplete out of 10. And I will honestly say, unless you really want to get on the ground floor, it's not worth putting the $30 into it right now, because the game is nowhere near where it will be in hopefully 6 to 7 months. But anyway guys, that will wrap up this review. I'd like to thank you for watching, and of course, I hope you enjoyed.